Minoru Yamasaki, designer of the World Trade Center Twin Towers, had a vision of a world in balance. I feel this way about it. World trade means world peace, and consequently, the World Trade Center buildings in New York had a bigger purpose than just to provide room for tenants. The World Trade Center is a living symbol of man's dedication to world peace. Beyond the compelling need to make this a monument to world peace, the World Trade Center should, because of its importance, become a representation of man's belief in humanity, his need for individual dignity, his belief in the cooperation of men, and through cooperation, his ability to find greatness. Minoru Yamasaki, greatbuildings.com. Divine Discoveries at Ground Zero, a multimedia presentation by Connie Baxter Marlow. Presented in Sedona, Arizona, January 16, 2004. Aspen, Colorado, June 28, 2005. An uplifting look at the events of September 11, 2001 that triggered the opening of the human heart and the rebirth of America, heralding the coming of peace on earth, with substantiating evidence and perceptions of America. For more information, go to theamericanevolution.com, youtube.com, The American Evolution. Perceptions of America. Anne Broderick Zill, Director, Center for Ethics in Action, Maine and D.C., September 2003.
I'm Anne Broderick Zill. I live in South Freeport, Maine, which is a small village on the coast of Maine, pretty much untouched, although you have to be kind of rich to live here now. So I work all the time, happily, at a number of different jobs. Let's see, for the longest time, 30 years, I've been a program associate with the Stuart Ma Charitable Trust, which means I get to give away a little money for peace and for human rights, civil liberties, all sorts of good things, population efforts, the empowerment of women, and so forth. I also am the president of the Fund for Constitutional Government to try to keep our democracy open, honest, and accountable. I have had the great privilege for the last 6 years of being the director of an art gallery at the University of New England, which has 2 campuses here in Maine, one in Portland, where I run what used to be called the Payson Gallery. Now it's the gallery at UNE. And I mount 6 or so shows a year there, and have been privileged to curate other shows at the United Nations and in the halls of Congress, among other places. I also have my own public policy center that I direct, which is called the Women's Center for Ethics in Action. And that is a public policy entity that does programs about using women as leaders, always in alliance with men, and looking at the values that studying the values that we espouse, our ethical underbelly or underpinning, as it were, and seeing if it squares with what we should have in this world. I was in New York on September 11, 2001, to attend a United Nations conference on civil society and the importance of citizen input into the decisions that are made by governments all around the world. And I'd been in Soho to attend a wonderful gathering that my friend Claudia Demonte, an artist and a professor of art, had gathered. And it was a swell, warm, late summer night as I made my way in a taxi up to Spanish Harlem, where my daughter Oriana was living with her new baby, brand new baby, 2-month-old baby, and husband newly arrived from Cuba. They were still asleep in the morning when the phone rang. I was up waiting to say goodbye to them before going to the United Nations for my second day. The phone rang. Someone said, "Turn on the television." So I turned on the television, and there was a sudden flash, news flash. The plane had hit the North Tower, and Oriana came out with her baby and sat with me, and we talked. And suddenly there was another crash, and the plane hit the South Tower. And I remember Oriana, my daughter, the documentary filmmaker, saying, "Why aren't they using the word terrorist? This is a terrorist attack." She had just been doing a documentary on terrorism in Colombia around drugs, in the country Colombia around drugs. And so she recognized it immediately. And I felt this overwhelming sense of dread. I felt the world as I had known it would be changed forever. I did not worry about myself. I worried about what was happening to our world and what the significance of this crash would be. I did not know. I've had a feeling that it was not a good thing, and that it was a symbol that we were not at peace, that our country was on a wrong track somehow, and that we needed to re-examine where we were going. I knew, of course, that the United Nations would not be a good place for me to go, and of course the conference would be canceled. All I could think at that moment was to go home to Maine, to be there for my little daughter, who was then just 11 years old.